No Shafali Verma in a home World Cup. That is the headline as India unveiled their 15-member squad for the Women's World Cup 2025. Renuka Singh Thakur is back. Amanjot Kaur also features in a side that is very experienced, very stable. And on ESPN Cricinfo newsroom, I have with me Valkyrie Baines for the first reaction. But Shashank Kishore, your first thoughts on this squad for a home ODI World Cup starting September 30?
Well, I just feel that the selectors and the team management have missed out on a great opportunity to include an X factor player like Shefali Verma, even if she may have not been in as part of their plans in the first 11 to begin with. This is a long tournament. Each team plays the other seven, so there is potential to change things up if your plan A doesn't work. And Shefali Verma has the international experience. She's got the body of work. Yes, she didn't have recent form going with her, but she's the kind of player who can add the dash of madness that the team desperately needs in the power play. Pratika Rawal has been outstanding in the matches that she's played so far, but she's shown this propensity to build an innings and start little slowly, and that puts the onus on Smriti Mandana to be the enforcer. Whereas with Shefali opening the batting, it's she who takes the risks early on, allowing Mandana to build an innings and bat longer and deeper into the innings. So I think that's where she would have been massively, would have been a big advantage to have Shefali. So yeah, those are my first thoughts. I think India have missed a trick by not picking Shefali, even though current form isn't on her side.
Yeah, as headline grabbing as it may seem, I think it's a decision you can live with because in a World Cup, it would have shaken things up because Pratika Rawal has been opening, partnering Mandana. Harleen Deol has been at number three. Well, you covered this team just recently when they were in England. Uh, how shocking or otherwise does Shafali's exclusion sound to you, and what do you think of the overall make of the squad?
Yeah, I agree with Shashank, and I think she'd actually done enough here in England to be in that one day squad. So Shafali didn't play any of the one day internationals here in England. She played the five T20s, and just off the back of the last three of those, I thought she'd done enough 47, 31, and 75 in the last match. And after that last knock, we sort of spoke to the coach and just about her chances of breaking back into that 50 over squad, and he said she's well and truly put her name in the ranks to be considered. Obviously, not committing to anything, but at that point, I thought, I reckon they're going to pick her, and I thought she'd done enough. I guess, like you say, in terms of form on her side, it did leave me wondering a bit what more she has to do to unseat Pratika Rawal. I know that she started that tri-series against Sri Lanka and South Africa with a couple of 50s, hasn't seemed to have done loads since. And Shefali's also scored a 50 in that A series in Australia at the moment. So she's building in the one-day format as well. So, yeah, it did leave me wondering what more she had to do to get into this squad.
Yeah, let's turn our attention to the bowling attack once again. As we've stressed multiple times, this is a settled side, Shashank. But looking at the spin attack first, four spinners in a home World Cup, you'd probably expect that. Given India women have tended to turn to spin more often than not, happy with the picks that they have made.
Yeah, most of the calls were pretty straightforward. And as Harmanpreet alluded to, it was probably one of the shortest meetings that they've had. And that's because the squad's largely been settled. But I think somewhere, there could have been a temptation to pick a wrist spinner. It's not something that India have gone in with usually. I mean, at the T20 World Cup last year, they had Asha Shobna, but since her injury, they haven't played a wrist spinner. Priya Mishra played occasionally, but she's not been a certainty in the 11. On the recent A tour, you had Prema Rawat, who did really well against Australia, and she's also a very capable batter low down the order, an absolute gun fielder. So instead of playing a series of left arm spinners, which India have tended to, I thought maybe they could have taken a punt on a wrist spinner, especially in a big game like against Australia or England, just for that unknown factor to come into the equation. But I also can see where the selectors are coming from. This is a World Cup, a peculiar situation where You don't know, which venue is still hosting the opening game. As of now, Bangalore is slated to, but we're hearing that that could get shifted. And also, India haven't played a lot of cricket in the other venues that they'll be playing at, whether it's Indore, whether it's Guwahati. So it could also be a case of not having a great deal of knowledge on those conditions, because of which they wanted to go with the tried and tested. So yeah, I think it's fair that they've gone with the personnel that they've picked. But yeah, there may have been there could have been a temptation to have a wrist spinner in the mix.
Two left arm spinners and two off spinners. Well, one of them, Sri Charani, playing for the first time in England, where India won 3-0, tormented the England batters to no end. Your thoughts on how the bowling attack shapes up, and particularly Sri Charani, who you seemed impressed by?
Yeah, I was very much, especially in the T20 format. She was the leading wicket taker there with 10 at 14.80. So she was really, really impressive in the shorter format. The one that stood out for me in terms of the 50 overs was the Seema Kranti Gord, playing just her fourth one-day international, her fifth match for India in that third one-day international at Durham, took 6 for 52 and ended up as the leading wicket taker for the series with 9 at 15.11. So I was impressed by both the spinners and the seamers, and young ones as well. So, ones that we're going to see a lot more of, I'm sure.
Yeah, Kranti God, because of the venues, one of which is Indore, is likely to play her first World Cup in her backyard. But Shashank, that seam bowling attack in your selection preview that went up on ESPN Cricinfo, you had mentioned that Amanjot Kaur was actually nursing a niggle, where we were actually wondering what happened to her, because she did well in the T20Is in England, played just the first ODI and then was out of action, while the official line was that she was rested. But here she was nursing a niggle. She's at the center of excellence, making a comeback. So too is Renuka Singh, who last played the WPL. Is there a risk of a bowling attack that turns up half baked because of two players who are coming back of an injury, Shashank?
At the time that she was rested in the England series, Amanjot Kaur wasn't in that bad a shape that they had to pull her out entirely. But you can understand the caution that the team management went with, because they don't have a seam bowling all rounder. Pooja Vastrakar has now been injured for nearly a year, and probably if they had someone like a Vastrakar in the mix, they may have not exerted the same caution with someone like an Amanjot Kaur. So I think that's the reason why they pulled her out of those two games, brought her in. It's a back issue at the end of the day, and India have had high profile injuries of players injuring the back before a tournament, and the complexities that can bring with it. Having said that, she's her scans were fairly clear and it didn't indicate any major concern, so she's still recuperating at the NCA, and she should be available for the two warm-up games in the lead up to the World Cup. So she's got game time very recently, so I don't think they're very concerned with her. With Renuka, again, a long-standing injury, but she's been at the NCA for a few months now. Hasn't played since the WPL, but she's had a few practice games under her belt, and the coaching staff is fairly happy with the way she's gone in those matches. So I think the three ODIs against Australia is massive, and also good preparation for her leading into the World Cup. So the seam bowling mix is fairly good for the Indian team. It only remains to be seen if they play Amanjot as a second seamer with one of Renuka or Arundhati, or if she is the third seamer. That's a team balance question that they'll have to answer for a little later. But I think Amanjot is fit and fine.
Yeah, for the first time, India head into a World Cup with not just reliance or over reliance on a couple of players. Because earlier there was Mithali Raj, Jhulan Goswami, or often Smriti Mandana or Harmanpreet Kaur. But here they are heading into a competition with Jemima Rodriguez in form, Richa Ghosh at her hitting best, and Deepti Sharma at her wily best. But well, final thoughts from you. Harmanpreet Kaur scored that century in the ODI series. Do you think it augurs well? And also, is she batting at her best right now?
On the strength of that last outing in Durham, yes, absolutely. Had a slightly delayed start to the tour. She missed that first T20 after getting a head knock in the warm-up game. That allowed Smriti Mandana to shine in the first T20. She got a century there. And then, so that Harman was just slowly building, didn't feel like she did a lot. And then bang, straight out in the last match, her last chance to impress, and that century was just absolutely brilliant. She just dominated and looked really in fine touch. So yeah, just I mean, looking on paper, like you say, that a lack of an over reliance. Just on paper, yeah, I'm looking at that squad and going, these are the favourites here, and then having seen them in action over here. It only sort of solidifies that, as you say, not just Harman, not just Smriti, but particularly in that last one-day international, when I think India really brought everything together really strongly. We had contributions from Jemima Rodrigues, Harleen Diol, and Deepti Sharma was just great as an all-rounder throughout that series as well. So yeah, just looking at the depth, I always say, these days, certainly never discount Australia. You can't. We've got their captain, Elisa Healy, hitting form in that A series at the right moment after a 12-month battle with injuries. So they're always going to be a danger. But yeah, having seen this India side up close and just the talent that they've got, they're favourites.
Right. Apart from those 15 members, there are 6 players named in standbys who are Tejal Hasabnis, 2 wrist spinners in Prema Rawat, Priya Mishra, a backup wicketkeeper in Uma Chetri, and Minu Mani, as well as Saili Sadgare. That is the whole India squad for the women's ODI World Cup 2025 starting September 30. You can find all the coverage on ESPN Cricinfo. Well, this was ESPN Cricinfo Newsroom.